Shalom, family. Come on in. Come on in. Hopefully all is well with everybody. Trying to be better and more efficient in getting this stuff out here. But prayerfully all is well. And thank you everybody for being on. We appreciate you. Thank you for spending some time with us one more again. Excited to be able to get into this word again. Trying to see how, make sure this back. Make sure y'all can see me. Hopefully it's a little better. Okay, there we go. It's a little better now. I don't think it likes the colors on one app. I got to change to a different background. Let's see. But prayerfully all is well with everybody. Prayerfully all is well. And thank you for joining us. I doesn't like that one either. Trying to make sure we can figure out this background for everybody. But anyway, we'll get something on here. But we appreciate you all. Thank you for being on with us. We're honored and grateful to have you all on. Hopefully the sisters did well. Seemed like you guys, and of course, as we trying to get started, have stuff in the background, but that's okay. Hopefully the sisters did well and had a decent meeting. Sounded like you did as usual, as always. And so we're thankful and grateful to have another opportunity to step in front of you again. At hashtag Real Talk Sessions. I know these evenings have kind of been all over the place recently. So we're trying to get some kind of stability. Still trying to figure out, got, new scheduling and stuff, trying to get used to and everything, and trying to make sure that things are a little better for family and for SOC family and for these live sessions. So trying to get things back on track. I did, I think we sent out a Google Calendar invite, so prayerfully everybody did receive that. And we're grateful and thankful to Elder Nais, who's going to be giving the word. Hey, Shalom, Sister Sage, I see. How you doing? Hopefully all is well with you guys down there. Hopefully all is well with hubby and daughter, and the growing of food and the food pantry and everything. I'm not sure if we were ever able to get you guys connected down there with, I don't think we did, but we're going to try and give them some info again, make sure, get you connected with Sister Taylor, who helps with food as well. But definitely can help from time to time. We have some persons down there that definitely could use some, and also if we can support too from time to time, maybe we can talk about that down the road. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with it, but we're always keeping anybody in prayer, especially if you're SOC, but just in general, if you're trying to make sure the community's all right. Let me double check something real quick. Got a bad feeling about, no, we got the signal correct, okay. So prayerfully everybody should be able to see and hear me all right. Prayerfully so. We'll go ahead and get started and get into tonight's message. Aman, shalom, shalom. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect tonight's message. Aman. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi, ¿cómo está? Bonjour, me Kofi se va. Ni hao, namaste, o sayana kitabuya, Ohio, I see you, Manut, Guan, kamsamida, aloha, ciao, bonson, privet, habarigani, aquaba, madaase, etese, Jambo, Mimini Kofi in the Varku Katana the Wewe, Layatav, Barakala Cham Hava, and the Aik of Aik, we headed to Tim the Christ, Mashalam He, Tedach at Ahaba Habi Yahava, Yahadishan, Testaik, Tedat, Testaik, at Yam. Thank you for being righteous in these days, in these perilous last days. We're thankful and grateful to be with you guys one more again. So, continuing, and by the way, just real quick before we get started, once again, thank you everybody who made their way over from our the women's meeting that just ended a little while ago. Thank you to everybody who will be coming by tomorrow for the men's meeting. If you can join us for tomorrow, I believe we're in step 4 or key number 4 in our series that we're doing for the men in 12 keys of biblical manhood. Prayerfully you guys have been enjoying that series, brothers. Sorry for all the noise in the background. It's right on time. Alrighty, so but we thank you everybody. Prayerfully, you can hear me over anything that's going on, and hopefully we'll be able to get something out of the message for this evening. As a reminder, we're removing the leaven from our home. It's a process. If you're somebody who does it the whole time, to stay away from the leaven, feel free to make sure that you're doing those things. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, we've been posting. It's been very minute, to be honest. But we have been posting little recipes and different things here or there that you can try to use to try and do some things with unleavened bread during this season. We have not made sure that we put a full list out. So you'll probably hear me start speaking on some things, and even posting some things in the shout out, and possibly posting some things here or there on social media that you can look at lists of things that have leaven, or at least things you should be looking for that might have leaven in them. Also, too, we are going to start getting on the road soon as a family, as an immediate family within our big family, to see all of you as family, and doing that for a little bit before we take a little bit of rest in Georgia, to make sure that we make sure everything's straight with the growing the food and everything, and then continue on the road for a little bit here or there, and possibly even look at other sites we might be able to grow some food. So keep us in prayer. That also means those of you in the DMV, we're going to try and see a couple of you on our way out. We're going to try to see you guys in the Carolinas very soon. Still probably shooting for not this weekend, but next weekend. I got to double check and make sure the calendar's straight. We're still going to try and see if we can see everybody down in Georgia real quick, because once we hit Passover, we're going to hit the ground running as we normally do. So prayerfully, you guys will be paying attention to all those different things happening and going on. You'll be able to get, in touch with persons in your area that are calling and texting everybody. I will do my best to make sure I'm getting you guys the information. Those of you in Florida, if you haven't received it already, or if you haven't checked your text messages in a while, or if you haven't checked with the ministerial staff in your region, make sure there's going to be another meetup in Florida this time for Passover coming up on April 1st. So you guys kind of stay committed to that. We're going to make sure that a bunch of information is out, and we'll do our due diligence to make whatever Ravak HaKodash has for us happen. Amen? Amen. Alrighty. So we're going to go ahead and say our Bible pledge real quick. If you can rise your feet in reverence of your cover's word, or however you were able to reverence the word on today. I don't know what's going on, I guess. Oh, okay. Persons across the street and dogs are barking. All right, it is what it is. I'm sorry for the noise. If it's too much for you, I get it. Hopefully it'll die down soon. But we're thankful and grateful for another opportunity to be able to come on for this rising. This evening. So let's go ahead and go this evening. By the way, tomorrow we will be on the rising, continuing in our Revelation series, going through Revelation chapter 12, which is great, because then Revelation 13 we can really take our time with and chew through on Sunday. So we're going to have some really great stuff. The watch party, just as a reminder, it cannot be on the weekends, at least not for the next couple of months. So not only just because of family day on Sundays, but on Saturdays. Right now, Solomon's got stuff that he has to do in the hours following Shabbat school. So just to let you guys know that will not be on Saturdays. I guess just stay posted. We'll keep you posted on when we can try and move it. It's probably going to have to be moved to a weekday. My apologies. That means some of you, when you have time to watch usually with us, you might not be able to watch it. My apologies, but it's just schedule us right now. It is what it is. All right. But let's say shalom to everybody, and let's do our Bible pledge and jump right in. How you doing, Elder Anais? By the way, looking forward to you preaching the word tomorrow. How you doing, Sister Carla, Brother Keith, Callum? Women's meeting was great. I'm on, Sister Carla. How you doing, Brother Jermaine? How you doing, Darius? How you doing, Sister Kimberly? Deborah, Energetic Flow. Welcome back. Finding us later on a different channel. Appreciate you. How you doing, Sister Shirley, Minister Stephen, Sister Sage, user 775-373, etc. Sister Belinda Bryant, Marlena, Aman. I'm not sure. I don't think you are. There's another Belinda that we used to be in tune with by that same name, but used to be, well, I don't know if they ever lived in the I guess they kind of sort of lived in the DMV, and then a couple of them moved to like somewhere else. But anyways, that's a name that means a lot to us, from a sister that actually used to be our secretary, another sister Marion, not to be confused with Auntie Marion, who passed away some years ago. She's actually the one who suggested we start something called the Women in Red, and which has blossomed into what's been to for the sisters. So that name always means something to us. But welcome. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started. Bible pledge. I'm sitting here going through all these different things. You're in Duval County? Okay. All righty. Let's go ahead and say our Bible pledge and we can jump right in. This is my Bible. This is my sword. This will I trust. For Yahshua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible. And this is Yah's word. Hashem Yahweh. Aman. When Yahweh Sham, his name is authority, let it be done unto us. You may be seated. We'll go back to what you're doing in the presence of the Most High Yahweh Elohim. So we're talking about royalty. How you doing, Brother James? Thanks for being on. Shabbat Shalom to everybody. If you're keeping Shabbat on Friday and Saturday. So tonight we're going to talk about royalty. Again, we have already started this series, but obviously our evenings are kind of up in the air right now as we're trying to reconfigure things schedule-wise. So, but we did talk about some of the basics of royalty. We talked about already that the kingdom starts with our king, right? We talked about that last time. And so what we'll discuss today is this phrase called born again. Born again. If you want to put that in quotation marks, feel free. But that's what our topic is. That's what our theme is tonight. Born again. Now, if we talk about being born again is one of the most crucial things when it comes to a kingdom. Why would you think that, right? Why would that be that this term being called born again is extremely important, specifically when we're talking about a kingdom, we're talking about a country. Why is that important as far as lineage? That royalty pops, when royalty pops up, we talk about what you were born again into. How you doing, Dr. Luan, Sister Luan? Right, why would that be so important? How you doing, Sister Allison? Why would it be so important that we make sure that we talk about what it is to be born again? Right? But, right? Now think about that. Think on that. We want to think this is not common sense, this is kingdom sense. A lot of times we talk to like commoners. That's something we can't do deal within this series. So I want you to think about that just for a little bit. Mull that over. Why is it that Yahshua tells Nicodemus that it's important that he be born again? It's extremely valuable to be born again if you're going to speak in the kingdom. The reason being is that the way that nationality works, the way that nations work, he said the only way to inherit, come on, there you go, right? Talk about lineage, right? Matter of fact, if you guys recall in Genesis, we had five ways of looking at this, right? We talked about there having to be a will. If something were to happen to me, and not trying to talk down to anybody, just using this as an example, right? So let's say I was the father, I was whoever's father's listening, I was somebody's father, just an example, right? And as your father, I died. How you doing, Sister Judith? Then you would have something next that would be called, that you would have to look for, called my will. Right? Because if something's not in my will, if it's not in my, if you're not in my will, and of my will, then my will, when it is done, will exclude you. Right? So even if you were not born from the womb of my wife, which would be your mother, it would still be important that if you wanted an inheritance, then you would need to be considered to be my child, right? You would have to be my child. So I would create a will. We might even say the word of Yah, the same will that's on paper, that after when we are going to see if we are allowed to be his children in heaven, in Revelation chapter 20, verses 11 through 15, it tells us that our works should match the will or the scrolls so that our names can be allowed through the will to inherit a place in the book of life. So the first thing we talked about in our Badashat series, when we kept saying that last year over and over again, as we talked about first things first, is you have to make sure that you are, we have to first things first, make sure that somebody is in the will, right? Right, if you're in the will, right, adopted in, otherwise you've got to be inside the will of the person that's there. Once we deal with the will, then you have what's called a lineage. You are in my lineage. You cannot deal with the heritage, right? You can't deal with the legacy. You can't deal with all that stuff if you're not in a lineage. I'm sorry, no, I'm trying. I hope this isn't too distracting. Every little thing that happens is going to get a bark, but that's okay. So if you're going to be in My will, you got to be, if you're going to be in the lineage, the line of those who will get what's next called an inheritance. Well, first things first, you can't get an inheritance if you're not in the lineage. You can't be in the lineage if you're not in my will. See, it's not right. It's not just only what's going on there. You have to be, the king has to recognize you. This is why there's a term that many persons use very incorrectly, because we kind of use it as a slight, and it is a slight, right? Saying that you don't belong to something, but it's not quite the way that we use it today. This term called bastard, right? Forgive my French if that's too harsh for you. I'm not cursing at you. I'm just giving you a real term that has legal ramifications, right? How you doing, Brother Dwayne? Right? It has legal, lawful ramifications. If we talk about this, that B word, I won't say it too much because I know it can feel harsh, and especially if some of us feel like our fathers weren't in our lives, I'll be very sensitive in that. But I bring that up because a lot of persons misread this. So, for example, if somebody is that word, it doesn't mean that your father's not in your life. This is kind of what we use it as now, or usually we just use it to make somebody feel bad. However, if you go back to the origins of it, especially with kingdom, if you're speaking about kingdom, and thank God for the love, if you're speaking about kingdom, when you're talking about that word, what you're talking about is somebody who is still in under their father, but now is no longer allowed on the throne. How you doing, Sister Shima? Now that's crucial, right? They no longer are next in line for the throne. For example, King Henry VIII. We talk about him a lot, but there's a lot of stuff you can learn about kingdom or things that have happened that are anti-Christ and stuff over the years where Christianity came from. We bring them up, but there's others you can bring up. We'll even bring up some other names too. But a lot of us know about English history because that's what we had to learn in school. So if you were to talk about King Henry VIII, which is a very popular study for many different reasons. One of the things that you will see is that he had 6 wives, right? 3 were off, 3, just were told to go somewhere and be separate from everybody and have no life for the rest of their life. And he has, out of these 6 wives, he has 4 children. No. 3 children, excuse me, right? 3 children. He has a daughter who becomes, Queen Mary, Bloody Mary. He has a son. Or I'm sorry, the order is he has a daughter, he has a second daughter. I'm going to mess this one up. I always try to call her Victoria. She's not Victoria. She might be Queen Elizabeth. But he has a second daughter, and then he has a third child, which is a son. The son is who he's been looking for to be on the throne. So now that son inherits, is adopted into a position. How you doing, Sister Beck? Right? That son is now adopted into a position. Right? The 2 children before him were excluded and were considered to be, how you doing, Sister Quotation, considered to be that B word, right? I'll only say it one more time after this because I'm going to be careful once again, right? So they were excluded. And when we use that B word, what we're saying, they still were given a place to stay. They still had an estate. They still had money, right? They were treated not necessarily like royalty, but they were treated like persons who were in the court to a certain degree. But because they were no longer considered to be, especially with their mothers not being able to give what he considered to be an heir that was acceptable, they were cast aside. When their mothers were cast aside, the children were cast aside. Right? Now, Mary will end up becoming royalty before once her younger brother passes away, but right then the younger brother was put into place. So, right? So it's not so much that they had no connection as far as nobody admitted or they were just put out to be poor or whatever, but as far as lineage was concerned, they could not have anything that caused us to talk about inheritance. Right? So what happens with a lot of persons is that we're not thinking about, hey, in order for me to inherit something, I have to have proper lineage, and it has to be lawful. So if you are born of Adam, and Adam sins, right, and you therefore are not raised and trained correctly inside the kingdom, inside the country, inside the family, right? Yes, Yahweh created Adam, and therefore you come from Adam, but you are not guaranteed to be a child of the Most High until you are adopted into position. Did you catch that? I know that seems to be a lot that I was speaking on and everything, but I might have been circling around, but I'm on the runway now. You have to be adopted into position. You have to be what? You have to be adopted into position. So if you are not my child by birth, you can still be extended things in my will right? Because I have adopted you into a position. Once you are in the family, right now I can say within the family what your role is and what you can have, right, in this family because you belong to me. Well, the same thing is with the Most High. So if we're going to speak on royalty, a lot of persons who are saying that I'm Malachi, that I'm a king, that I'm a queen, that I'm a prince, that I'm a princess, that I'm this, that I'm that. Okay, cool. We got to get to this thing now called born again. Because one who is not born again is still a child of the world. Matter of fact, you're a child. If you're not careful, you can be a child of the devil and still go to church every Sunday. If you're not careful, you can be a child of the devil and show up to whatever service, whatever SOC service, IUIC service, camp service, whatever service. If you're not careful, you can be, you don't realize the devil was, you don't think devils can sit in the pew and children of the devil can sit in the pew, but the devil was in heaven during a worship service. You remember that? That's where the story of Yabal or Yab, or who we now call Job, right? That's where the challenge came from. Job was a man, he was perfect and upright in all his way, living in the land of Uz, doing everything he was supposed to do. All of a sudden there's a service going on in heaven, and the devil shows up. When the devil shows up, the Most High asked him, what are you doing here? He said, what have you I haven't seen you in a while. Why are you even here? Matter of fact, what have you been doing? And he says, hey, you know what I do? I walk around to and fro, seeking whom I may devour. And then what does Most High say? Well, and all these things, you talking about devouring persons. Why haven't you considered my servant Job? So you devouring this one and that one, and they're not even, doing what they're supposed to do, maybe necessarily, right? I don't want to make an assumption on that, but that kind of seems to be like, hey, you get the ones that seem to be easy to get. Why don't you deal with the ones who are actually like in my will doing what they're supposed to do? Hi, Todusa. I'm aware of the verse you're talking about. I'm still going to stay on track with what I'm talking about tonight. If that's a cop-out, so be it. All right? Y'all have been getting me to a certain degree to get off track, and I got to be better about that. Right? So it is what it is. Tonight, talking about royalty. Royalty. That's what we're talking about tonight. Right? So appreciate you. I only got to 9:15, so I'm going to be obedient. And get this off rather than getting into all the other stuff. I'm gonna be better, right? I haven't necessarily gone off the deep end, but I have allowed it to get a little off. So I'm gonna make sure I'm better, right? Because I already know where we're headed, and that ain't a short little thing. All right, how you doing, Brother Rowdy? And oh, that was all you had on? Shoot, let me just give. What was the point of you coming on? Cats like that. I don't know what that is. All right, let me get that off there. That was wild. All right, so how you doing, Minister Raj? And by the way, Minister, bro, I'll shoot you a text. But yeah, so that happened in heaven. So we forget that even Genesis chapter 3 tells us that there are children of the Most High and children of the devil, and what we assume. And how you doing, Kirsten? The assumption that we make, unfortunately, is that everybody who's a human being is a child of the Most High. We think that everybody, but no. See, the reason you must be born again is because you could be a human being. You can be somebody that says that you love God, this and that, or whatever, but you have to be adopted in. That's why not only do we talk about being grafted, but we forget that even we must be born again. Because he was talking to an Israelite when he said born again. Did you know that? Before you guys just go off the deep end, we were just born as Israel, and we're going to pretend like we're sin-free. No. He was talking to an Israelite. When he was talking to Nicodemus, look it up in John chapter 3. Nicodemus is what? He's a Pharisee. If he's a Pharisee, then what? He's an Israelite. It could be a possibility that he might have been half Greek, half Israelite, or maybe even one of the Greeks coming in the back door, but more than likely, Nicodemus would have been an Israelite. Even though that's not an Israelite name they're using for him, but more than likely he was an Israelite. Which means that, yes, even we as Israel must be born again before we start talking about the advantage that we have. Because if you're somebody who's been raised on Balaam doctrine and is still using that, and now all of a sudden you think that just putting some fringes on means that you're part of the kingdom, that's not how kingdoms work. Matter of fact, it's like somebody trying to put on former military members on here, Brother Dwayne on here, some others on here. If you've been in the military before, how you doing, Sister Regina? If I can't wear my uniform Probably can't fit in it anyways anymore, but I can't just put my uniform on because I'm not in the military anymore. But let's say even if I did, persons would let it go to a certain degree because, I actually served. If I put ribbons on and medals on, I earned those, right? But if somebody else were to try and wear my uniform or wear a uniform and put something on it that they didn't deserve, what do you call it? You call that stolen valor. Thank you, James. I appreciate you. We call that stolen valor, right? Meaning that there's valor that's deserved for being in, but it ain't yours. And even in the military, I can't come to you guys and be like, I was a Navy SEAL, blah, blah. If I get caught saying that, stolen valor. Right? I'm saying that I'm something that I'm not. See, so what happens is a lot of persons believe that you put on a uniform. Right? It used to be we put on the suit and tie. Used to mean that you had the shape up correct, man, right? Used to mean that you weren't supposed to do this, that, whatever. And then all of a sudden people said stuff like, you look like a preacher. We thought there was a uniform. But now we're finding out what our people used to wear and stuff. And so persons go, okay, I'm going to put that on. But don't think that just because you put on the uniform, don't think this is just because you put on the uniform. Brothers, you put on the uniform. Brothers, you got, something that you're wearing on your head, even though you're not even supposed to wear that, depending on who you come from. And you're wearing your effort, even though you ain't supposed to be wearing that unless you're actually a priest. And priestly duties and certain things, right? And you're not supposed to be wearing fake stuff either. You're supposed to have real stones on there, or else you're wearing something that's not even what the Most High commands, right? We're not supposed to wear a plastic version of it, correct? Right? No matter how nice the plastic looks, right? But we, I don't want to get into all that, but I just want to. I don't want to get too deep into that, but I do want to make sure that we comprehend and understand. There's a lot of cats out here with stolen valor when it comes to the kingdom. How you doing, Sister Monique? Come on, somebody. There's a lot of persons in the kingdom with stolen valor. They think that they're going to grow some hair and they're going to put on a uniform, right? And they're going to read like this because they have power in their voice now. And the anon that comes to their voice when they aside or when they speak, now it means that they must be great. But see, in the kingdom, there's lawful things that must take place. And you have to be adopted in there. This is why this thing called born again is crucial. Come on, somebody, right? I need to be born again because what that's saying is that I'm in the world and I'm not Israel, I'm not kingdom, so I must be born again. I have to go through the process. I have to be retrained. I have to be trained things that I should have been trained since birth. I've got to be born again. That was spoken to an Israelite. Once again, it's spoken to a Pharisee. It's spoken to a priest. But you can be a priest and still not be born again. That makes sense, right? That's in your word. If it's not in your word, you let me know. If I'm making stuff up, if you need to make sure that I stand corrected and get on me and tell me, no, that's not in the word. But if it's in your word, I would suggest you listen to it. So you can be somebody who speaks in tongues and not be born again. Because you got to have the spirit. Now, there's a lot of persons that fake speaking in tongues. And I'm not here to tell you who is and who isn't. I'm just telling you that it's possible that somebody could speak in tongues, right? So-called speak in tongues and not be born again. Matter of fact, I have heard famous preachers preach and realize as they are preaching that they are not born again and get the prayer. Now, I'm glad they did so. Not very few will do this. But see, you can be a preacher and not be adopted and grafted and be part of the family. Oh, yeah. You can be a pastor. You can be quiet. You can be pastor, servant of Christ. And if you're not careful, you cannot be part of the family. See, I put myself in there because I deserve the scrutiny as well. Scrutinize it. Study it. Look, lambast me if I'm wrong. But we have a Pharisee, Hebrew, Israelite, all that stuff. Wears the fringes. Knows the scrolls. All these different things. Well, at least is aware of the scrolls. We can't say he's intimate with them because Christ is going to hit him with something in John chapter 3, where he says, well, Nicodemus comes to him and says, we know you have to be sent from Elohim. Because who could do miracles like you? And he says, Nicodemus, first things first, we can't even continue the conversation until you're born again. We're talking royalty tonight. We're talking royalty. And by the way, a lot of persons think they're born again because they said something called the prayer of salvation. There's no such thing in your Bible as the prayer of salvation. If you'd like to check on it, please, I'll sit back and wait. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go grab me a swig of this fine water over here, and while I'm partaking, feel free to Google, feel free to look it up. Show me in your Bible where somebody gives you something called the prayer of salvation. All right, time's up. Did you find it? But everybody talks about the prayer of salvation. And the prayer of salvation is supposed to be the thing that causes you to be saved. And even though saved and salvation aren't even the same word. And then what they do is they tell you Romans 10:9, but then they never tell you Romans 10:10. Because the prayer of salvation, you don't make a petition for salvation. You make a petition while you're working out your own salvation. There is no prayer that seals it up. To be saved means you got rescued. And when you confess, that's homologia. You said you have the same logic of Christ because you make him your Lord. Whatever his logic is becomes yours. Whatever he studies is what you study. Whatever he followed is what you follow. That's great. But now you got to work. If you have faith in your Lord, then you should show it by doing his works. Right? I'm just speaking Bible. This is in your word, right? See, so if I'm in the kingdom and I'm going to be royalty, first thing first, I've got to be born again, which means that I have to make a decree. Eventually, it even leads up to a public declaration. We call it baptism or immersion or submersion, whichever term you want to use, since baptism is no longer something we can use, apparently. Right? Even though all we're doing is just speaking different languages. But whatever, right? You got to be submerged. You got to be immersed. You got to be baptized. All of a sudden, that's the thing that's going to cause you to be what? That's the thing that's going to cause you to be baptized. I'm sorry, to be born again. That's what persons say. But no, the baptism is a public declaration of what is already taking place, which is one must be born again. Right? One must be born again. One must go from being recognized as being part of a nation outside the kingdom and has to go through a rebirth. This is what happens when one is adopted in. Once again, if I were to adopt a child, what I say is you are no longer thought of as how you were born. But from henceforth, right? This is right. From henceforth, you are known as, right? If I were to knight somebody, guess what? They're being born again. They're being born as something completely different. From henceforth, you shall be known as Sir, such and such, right? Why? Because from this moment on, when I touch you or when I bring you in, right? It's everything from before doesn't even matter because you're not what you used to be. You're who you are now. Doesn't mean you don't have memories of things you used to do, all the different things, but you are no longer part of that country, that kingdom, that nation, that family. You now belong to us. So when this thing is talked about being born again, it's talking about an adoption, beloved. It's talking about leaving the world and no longer being considered to be whatever nation you are first and putting the kingdom of heaven first, putting the kingdom of Israel first, putting the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords first, and being his child. And therefore being his child, this is why you have inheritance. This is when you can say no weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you shall be condemned. Why? Because the rest of the verse says, for this is the inheritance of Israel. That's not for everybody. That's for those who are born again. Matter of fact, when you look up, we're going to get into this one tomorrow, right? We're going to get into this tomorrow. When you look up Genesis chapter 12, right? When you get into Genesis chapter 12, you'll see something. Genesis. When you get into Revelation chapter 12, when we get in that tomorrow, that's where we're starting tomorrow. And we're going to do the whole chapter. You're going to see that, wait a minute, the woman that's mentioned in Genesis 3 is the same woman that's in Revelation 12? Yes, that's the truth. And guess what you're going to discover? You're going to discover that this woman who's mentioned in Revelation chapter 12, right, the same woman that's mentioned in Genesis 3 is the same, is Israel. And you've been looking for something completely different your whole life, not realizing that woman who you got to be born through is married to the Most High. And because the Most High seed is deposited in his wife, and the Most High is faithful. He don't have a bunch of wives. Right? I know it's very nice when persons say, I used to say this, because it sounds nice. You hear a person say, well, some call him Jehovah, and some call him Yahweh, and some call him the mighty God. No. He's faithful. He got one wife, and his wife calls him by name. I'm just giving an example. This ain't never happened in life, right? I'm just giving an example. Brothers, y'all be able to touch and agree. Sisters, I think you would touch and agree, vice versa. Let your wife, let your spouse ever in life, even accidentally, say somebody else's name. And I ain't talking about just in the bedroom. I'm talking about call you by the wrong joker's name in life, period. We gonna have a problem. In life. I'm not talking about the bedroom bad is extremely bad. That's an extreme situation. I'm talking about it. We just talking. We can be talking about sports. We can talk about the food. We can be talking about weather. And you bring up somebody else's name. I don't even care if it's an ex. Anybody else's name referring to me. Maybe I'll let it slide with the children. Anybody else outside of me, we got problems, don't we? Yet everybody, some call him, and some call. That's when persons really ain't married to him, because we don't got a bunch of this and that and blah blah. And we know what we call him. You laying on the fans? Come on, I hear you. Right? I'm just saying. But it's this thing, because persons haven't made. See, the only child of the Most High has to come through his wife. Every child of the Most High has come through his wife. We're talking royalty, born again, right? I'm not missing the mark. I promise you. There ain't no sin. This is exactly what your Bible talking about, right? Every child. How many of them? Every one. Every child. I'm just trying to help you. Every child. No, the woman is mentioned in Jeremiah chapter 3. I can't look it up right now because the two devices I have, the only devices I have right now at the moment, we're using them for both platforms. If somebody would like to look up Jeremiah chapter 3, I think you're going to have to go, please forgive me. You can look it up if you'd like to Google it, but if you'd like to just Google or look up for yourself, if you want to Google it, look up where in Jeremiah chapter 3 say that Israel is married to the Most High, or where does the Most High say he's married to Israel? I want to say it's like Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 14, 15, 16, somewhere in there. Right? But we know who he's married to. Matter of fact, Genesis chapter 3 tells us that there's this woman that's going to be travailing. Next thing you know, you get to Revelation chapter 12. It shows us the same woman with the same crown, but this time she's got 12 stars on her head. She's supposed to separate herself from the world so that when you get to the beast in Revelation 13, she don't have to worry about it. The same, and this group is sealed in Revelation chapter 7 by name. Revelation chapter 7 verses 4 through 8. How you doing, Taqwa? Hopefully all is well. Hopefully everything's been working out with the situation and all that stuff. Been praying for you. Sorry I haven't reached out recently, but hopefully all is well. Shabbat shalom to everybody. It's Jeremiah 3:14. Thank you, Monta. Thank you, Yochanan. Right there in your Bible. He says, for Israel, I am married to you. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6 and 7. A child of us is born. Who is us? Is it the same us that in Isaiah 54 or Isaiah 53, who shall believe our report? Talking about Israel. Isaiah 54, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. Every tongue that rises against you shall be condemned. For this is the inheritance of Israel. I mean, we can keep on going. Right? This is the child. Once again, you're warned in Revelation. We're in the Revelation series now. We've been doing it in the Rising since January 1st. Look, if you need a reminder, go to Revelation chapter 2, in verse. It's dealing with the Pergamos dynasty. If you want to go through the series and the playlist on YouTube, but look for yourself. Revelation chapter 2, verse 14, where it warns you about Balaam doctrine. What is Balaam doctrine? It is when the prophet Balaam was offered gold to teach Balak how to cast a stumbling block before Israel. And still to this day, even though Revelation is about eschatology, the study of the logic of the last days, or the days that will last, however you want to look at it. We're still having persons who do want to deny that a stumbling block being put before Israel is not something that we should be worried about. Is that persons are speaking and getting paid and fighting to make sure that Israel is not where she's supposed to be. We got a problem. We got a problem, don't we? Right? So if we look, right, if we just, once again, if we're just honest about it, if we continue to look through this stuff and look through it properly, look through it righteously, and right with right lawful standing, not adding to, not taking away. If we look at this thing righteously the way we are supposed to, come on, somebody, right? We see very clearly what's going on here. So to be born again, you have to be. Now we have to bring it full circle. As we got about 15 minutes left, so I'm gonna try and make sure we slide this in properly and we land this plane correctly. Okay, you ready? We have a problem if we are going to talk about being born again, but we're not going to talk about you got to be born through a vessel. It's very odd that we would talk about being born again and just be like, oh yeah, spiritually born again. But if it's using these terms, that we got to look at these terms, because if you're born out of somebody's womb, right? Through the birth canal to be able to be beheld. And before that, there's even something called a gestational period. Is there not? Sisters, what is the average gestation? Whether you got this far, went further, whatever the case is, what is the average gestational period just for your child to be born, for a human child? Come on, right? You see how this works? We know what this stuff is, but for whatever reason, we don't want to use cultural context or just natural law. 40 weeks, 9 months, right? It's not a quick overnight thing. This is why Paul says that if somebody desires an office, you don't just put them in a position just because they got saved. They have to take time. Why? Because just because you can't see, here's one of the things that we don't talk about. Yes, if you were a Gentile, take time to be grafted in and become part of us. We're supposed to take care of the stranger. We're supposed to teach you all those great things. Yes, those things are true. That being said, as you come in, you need to realize you're not going to come in and just keep doing the stuff you was doing. There's a gestational period. You got to get used to, before you even drink of the sincere milk, like Paul talks about, you got to first go from being the seed. Now, the word seed in Hebrew is the same word as the word seed that you put in the ground. It's also the same word as you talk about with seed that comes from a man's phallus, that comes from the testicular region. Same word, interchangeable, right? 3 meanings for that same word. So if somebody's going to come through, right, the seed, the word of Yah, it's implanted and it hits the egg, right? That egg is inside of Israel, and it takes a gestational period. It takes 9 months, if you will. Now, I'm talking spiritually, obviously. Hopefully you get that. I'm not saying you have to go through something for 9 months before you can officially do anything, but that's 9 months before you're born again. We know how this works. You said, and don't let the calculations be off. Right, exactly. Don't let it be too early. Look, we praying for everybody. We've seen it where babies came out early. We had a few in SOC. We had a couple that had my wife. Sorry, excuse me. We had a couple that had my wife and I in tears. Right, we had a couple of them that had my wife and I in tears. And how you doing, Jessica? Thanks for being perky me. We seen some baby that wasn't supposed to be here. Y'all knew they needed to be here, though. They still here. All praises. But yeah, it was touch and go. It was iffy. But we're thankful that the Most High continues to Barak SOC. And so, right, but there's if it's not the right amount of time, if it's not the way that it's set up to be, then it can be something that causes a lot of mistake, a lot of headache, a lot of frustration. Is that correct? You could have the baby technically in the 3rd trimester, right? So that means, you could technically subtract 12 weeks and hope the baby would be all right, but there would be some things that they would still be like, no, you probably need to make sure that baby stay in the NICU, right? Even if the baby's fine, they probably still be like, you might want to consider, because if that baby come out too early, something not right. It takes a certain amount of time to develop. And then once the baby's born, you need to be on something that's called the sincere milk. right? I need you to catch this part. See, the sincere milk, the true milk, the real milk. See, what a lot of you are used to when it comes to the milk that comes from Israel, from the mother that comes from Israel, but a lot of persons are not. You see, the milk is supposed to raise the seed. It's supposed to raise the word that was spoken into the womb of Israel to make sure that you were pushed out. See, but a lot of persons are used to that formula. Come on, you said similar. And by the way, formula, if we want to even dig deeper, is not made for you and I. It's made for a specific type of joker. They don't have too many different formulas. And even if they have 20,000 different formulas, every child is a 1 in an 8 billion or whatever the number is child, which means that when they are born, they're supposed to have sincere milk from their mother, because their mother's milk is specifically designed, and their mother is designed even to be able to give that baby what they need. The milk, the viscosity of it, the vitamins in it, the et cetera, how liquid it is, how solid it is, all these different things will change. If the child is sick, the milk changes. If the child is cranky, the milk changes. If the milk changes, the sincere milk changes what's supposed to be fed to the child, because of relationship and how the child and the mother grew together. See, if you haven't gone through even the process of learning your mother from the inside out, learning Israel from the inside out, learning the culture from the inside out, then how in the world? Maybe that's the question. How in the world, right? Because in the kingdom, you gotta have sincere milk, and that means you gotta be connected to the one whose womb you came from. The milk is customized while being milk, right? And it's so great that it can help others that are not part of you, but it's not the same as the baby who came out of the system. So you need a milk. You need sincere milk that comes from your mother, that specifically was attached to your father, that has no other person that they're dealing with except your father, and your father has no other person they're dealing with except you, so that you might be able to get what's specifically for you. And every brother and sister that comes out, they got a different version of the milk while having the same milk, because every child was different, but every child got the same cornerstone. You see how much you might need to be born again. Christ didn't back down when Nicodemus questioned it and said, how can one go back in his mother's womb? You don't make any sense. And he said, how is it that you are supposed to be a master of this and you don't know what you're talking about? How is it you are a Pharisee? How is it that you're a preacher? How is it that you're pastoring? How is it that you are busy telling everybody how many scriptures and verses that you know, and yet you don't know this for yourself? You haven't gone through the gestational period? You haven't been on the sincere milk? You know, sometimes the roughest person to help, can I keep it a buck with you? Sometimes the roughest person to help and teach when it comes to, persons come in the kingdom and they say they have a call to preach and stuff. Sometimes the roughest person to teach is the person who's been preaching in the world. We used to call it the church. I used to preach in the world too. I raised my hand. It's difficult to teach jokers like me, because we think that we came into the assembly, and so now we shouldn't do anything but just keep calling me the same title. I'm gonna just keep preaching the same thing. I'm gonna just change some names. I'm gonna just put on a new outfit. No. That's not how it works. At all. At all. Right? No, you have to go through a life-changing thing. You might have to sit your behind that. You got to go through training all over again. Yes, because I don't care. Right? Look, I got degrees too. Okay? It's not about how many degrees you have. Paul said, I had all this knowledge. I could speak in many different languages. But when I came into knowledge of who Christ was, when I was born again, I realized everything I knew was as dung. I needed to be a baby and be fed sincere milk. Preachers can preach just about on anything and make you happy. Give us 15, 20 minutes. We'll make you happy. If we've done enough preaching, we can figure out how to stretch it out and make it sound like everything, right? But it's not, but it's formulaic. It's because it's a formula. Right? There's different formulas that I can use, that I know that if just being honest, can I be honest? Can I keep it a buck? Still to this day, if I wanted to, I know how to solicit an emotional response. If I just want you to get emotional, I can get you emotional. If I want to hoop and holler, if I go to certain places, they don't even care what I say, as long as I hoop and holler, and then mess around and hoop and holler and give them a word that's solid. When a lot of persons, not everybody, when a lot of persons that hoop and holler don't even have a solid word. Oh yeah, they'll take it and fit. It's formulaic. If I go to certain types of services, make sure you don't hoop and holler. They think you the man. If I go to certain places, make sure that you say this and that about men. They'll think you're the man. Say this about women. They'll think you're the man. It's formulaic. If I go to a Kojic church, they're looking for this. It's formulaic. Formulaic. If I go to a Baptist church, they're looking for this. It's formulaic. A lot of us have been fed formula that works, but formula is not for you as an individual, and formula is something that doesn't come from your mother. Right? Usually when your mother has a deficiency, or your mother might decide she doesn't want to breastfeed for whatever reason, she makes a decision to give you formula, right? Or something that's formulaic. But it's right. The hospital will give you something that's formulaic sometimes, not even allowing the colostrum to take place, which is there to make sure that even new mothers will be able to develop milk. But they try to push something formulaic on you. Not what's natural, not what's sincere, not what's truthful, but what's formulaic. This is why they try to cut into your wombs, into your stomach, sisters, before they just simply let your child be born. It's formulaic. It's artificial. There you go. That's another term. They're running through a formula. And a lot of persons, you're just looking for the formula. You're just looking for this. But don't. If you're going to be in the kingdom is what you're born into. See, from even before you were born, you were being trained. How do you know the king's voice? Not only because you came from the king, but because you heard your daddy speak when he spoke to your mom, when he spoke to your mom's belly, when he made decrees in the house, all these different things. You heard your father's voice. This is why you're in the womb. The training begins. My son, we tried our best and they messed up some stuff, and we actually had to go to the hospital because we were afraid of some things that were going on with him when he was being born. So it is what it is. He had to come through that way, and it was a very terrible experience, and they, jacked a lot of stuff up, jacked Elder Alma up, we held on, we did what we had to do, and Solomon got here. And when he came out, he was crying and this and that, and, they're trying to do this and stick this and take this blood and blah, blah. And so I came over and I stood at the table, and while everybody's trying to do this stuff, there were certain things that, hey, we in the hospital, we trying to just get out of there, over the next couple of days. So we got to bow down to certain things that they say just to make sure we get out. Unfortunately, right? He only had one shot. He got the vitamin K shot in the state we were in at the time. You got to have that or you can't leave. It is what it is. But when I got to the table, I spoke. I spoke to them, basically had them slow down and back up a little bit. And I also spoke to my son. Right? And when he heard his father's voice, he knows me, even from the womb. Couldn't open his eyes yet, but he knew my voice, right? Because his training in his relationship with his father started while he was in the womb. He knows his mother's voice. He knows his mother's smell, right? He knows his mother's milk, right? He's gone through a process, right? That gestational process to where when he came out, he wasn't going through just the formula thing. This is relationship. When he's breastfeeding from his mom, and his mom is looking at him, and she's looking, she looks at him, he looks at her. Right? Oxytocin. This is relationship. You can try to put whatever chemicalized names you want, but this is out of relationship. This is the thing that gets to a place to where children who are breastfed, they have better relationships with their mother. See, a lot of you have not drank from the sincere milk of your mother, of Israel. And so what's happened is you have said all these different things that are formulaic, and children will still grow up off of formula, but they will have worse problems with relationship, especially when it comes to their parents. And here we have a spiritual thing going on with us to where we still have a bad relationship with our father, with our mother, with Yahweh, and with Israel. We don't want to be Israel. We want to be anything other than. We want to continue to worship them on the mountain of Esau, not make sure that we stay away from it. Doesn't matter if Malachi tells us to stay away from it or not. Doesn't matter if we're told that, is it Jubilee, that Esau is the end of the world and Israel is the beginning of everything else. We can't wait to be in line for more formulaic stuff, because when you're raised on formula, you'll start to accept a whole bunch of stuff you would never accept. It's the truth. Look it up scientifically. I'm not telling you anything you can't look up. Look it up for yourself. See which children are better at relationships with their parents, the ones who had formula or the ones who had sincere milk. And by the way, it's sincere milk. It's insincere To just be like, we can put a child on any type of milk. Now, it'll work, it'll get you there, but it's not sincere, it's not truly for you unless it comes from your mama. Your mama has your father's seed in it. Your mama literally told her immune system should shut down to a certain degree so that you wouldn't be taken out. Right? Your mother literally, some mothers lost teeth and stuff during the process because babies take minerals from the mother. Some of them lost hair, all these different things. Your mother became a living sacrifice, and at the end of it, you and hers DNA and blood mixed together during the process when she was giving birth unto you. Matter of fact, right? If it wasn't for it, and forgive me for being disgusting, but the only reason why your immune system turned on is because your mother's fecal matter hit you. Matter of fact, that's one of the worst things they tell these sisters is not to eat anything at all, right? When they're giving birth and to just fast, fast, fast. You need the stuff that's in you to hit the baby. So when the baby is hit by it, that the immune system turns on. Everything that is it happening with your mother's body, everything, any part of your mother's body has been 100% designed to ensure that you were able to make it, that you might be able to start training and start growing off of the sincere milk. You can't be talking about you in the kingdom and you haven't been born again. Have you been born again? Has anybody talked to you about what being born again is? If you come out of the world, are you born again? We don't operate like they do. You got to go through a whole process of learning what's going on. So during this royalty series, we're going to really be hitting a lot of stuff because a lot of persons have not recognized what it is to be born again yet. You haven't been born again. You've been told born again, but you don't even know what it is. You gotta go back through everything. You gotta know your characters. You think your ABC, you think your ABCs are more, the ABCs are more palatable. They're more formulaic. They're more palatable to you than true food. I love that. I'm on. All right, that's all I have for tonight. I'm gonna be faithful. My time is up. Thank you for being on this evening. I will see you guys tomorrow, 8 a.m. Probably be on earlier, but 8 a.m. New York time, and we'll have our live session. We'll have the Shabbat. We'll have our Shabbat service on the podcast with Elder Anais. We'll have our. And by the way, if you ever want to go through short versions, and somebody's like, "Hey, can I get shorter versions? I don't feel like sticking around for three hours of message and stuff." You can always tell them to go to the podcast as well. That's there for a reason. Thank you all. Thank you to the sisters who showed up tonight for the women's meeting. Brothers, we have our men's meeting tomorrow. It's the first Saturday. So let's go ahead and be ready. Elder Nice will give us a word tomorrow. We'll have Shabbat school for the babies. And then we'll have our men's meeting tomorrow. We'll go from there. All right. Tadat my shapachi or tadat my shapachi. I'm not saying it right. Mish Maya Shakape. There it is. There it is. All right. Thank you all so much for being on. I very much so appreciate you. Thank you so much again. We honor you. We appreciate you. And we look forward to talking with you soon. I hope that your evening is great. Prayerfully, it's starting to somewhat warm up a little bit wherever you might be. And prayerfully, the first frost will be, or the last frost is either behind us or very close to being behind us, so that we can go ahead and start, growing this food wherever we are in the country or in the world, really. Don't forget, New Year's is coming up for us, March 18th. We're going to be having 7 Last Word service a little bit after that. And we're looking forward to Passover coming up on April 1st. Also, too, if you're interested, don't forget, we're looking to go into Savannah, Georgia on May, basically that Memorial Day weekend. And I believe on that Friday I got to double check that Friday or Saturday. I think it's that Friday. We're going to try to go to the church over there, the Israelite church that was built by Israelite slaves with Hebrew characters and all that in it. So if you're interested, start thinking about that. See if you can come over there. Some of you are even in distance to where even if you don't come every day, you could probably make it one of the days. And, hopefully one of the days, even we can get up early enough and do a live session, and you guys can be partaking as well. as we continue to grow. So we're excited, we're thankful, we're grateful. If you're looking for Passover packages and everything through Elder Alma, make sure you reach out and let us know. Those who are looking for calendars, they should be on their way. Some haven't been sent yet, so prayerfully they will be sent out tomorrow, which means you probably may not get them this weekend. It may actually do for some of you, but depending. But we thank you all. We appreciate you. We look forward to talking with you guys soon. I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for showing up and being faithful, and keep us in prayer. We'll do the same for you. As always, this has been Pastor Kofi. I'm sorry, excuse me. We give our honor and praise to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Alma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. To the ministerial staff, moderators, SOC, Lottie Dar, and everybody, Layal Tav. And remember, as always, that you are loved. You're necessary. You're majestic. You're fearfully, wonderfully made. And you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shabbat Shalom. Take care. We look forward to talking.